good morning, good afternoon. This is Dave.
And this is Dell.
And we are
Two
the Old Bucks. Yes. And here we are with 2021 episode 4. We're going to show you how you can get your COVID vaccine shot more easily.
Mm-hmm.
Dale's going to tell us about elephants.
An elephant story, yeah.
Hopefully. I'm going to tell you a bicycling story. Not one of mine. This is a real bicycling story by a real author, and
talk about a book.
Maybe a book or two, and if we have time, we'll do some letters from afar. First, Dale said he kind of wanted to.
I had some thoughts.
You had some thoughts, some ramblings. So we're all hearing this for the first time, folks.
Yeah, I got to tell all our listeners that yes, it is morning. We are having coffee, and I would like to call this. This little segment here, he knew what I meant. Over the years, Dave and I, we've just developed a special relationship. We were friends, and we grew up as boys. But I lack the ability to spell very well. I guess there's no other way to say that. Dave would agree with me. But so with that understanding, over the years, I have written notes, messages, text messages, or whatever to Dave.
And I have no idea what he's saying half the time.
But clearly, he's pointed out many times that I've confused angle and angel, affect and affect. Is that the way you say that? Effect and affect. And the last.
Yeah.
The last humorous thing was quark and
quark.
Okay,
yes.
There you go.
So Dale sends me a note. You got to understand how this is well planned out. 6 a.m, he's always texting me. He says, "These are the ideas I have," and one was about quarks.
My quarks.
my quarks. And I said, "Geez, we're going to talk about subatomic particles. That's great." Like, oh, wait a minute, he's spelling. That's it's not a quark after all. So no hadrons involved here, folks.
So this has gone on for years and years and years. Basically, that anytime I do that, Dave would either politely point out my mistake or not even bother to mention it to me because he understood exactly what I was trying to say, despite the way I spelled it. And just to let you know. In a good friendship, which goes way back, and he doesn't know I'm saying this, but lastly, if Dave has seen me struggling, if he's ever seen me struggling with something like, for example, trying to blow up a bicycle tire with a straw or something like that, he would say, you might want to try this, and you'd hand me a proper bike pump, and then he'd say, why don't you just keep it? So he's been looking after me a lot of years.
It's a lot of work. It's
a lot of work to keep.
A lot of work.
a lot of work to keep up a good friendship. And he's worked hard at it.
More than you know.
So bear in mind, as in bear and bear, bear in mind that this is a celebration of two old bucks who together made it into oldness, and we've been laughing all the way. So. That's my story.
That's your ramble. Okay.
That's my ramble.
All right, there you go. So, thank you, Mr. Dale. Next thing we're going to talk about is how to get a COVID vaccine shot, or how you could have gotten a COVID vaccine shot.
Is this the official version, the county issued version of how you could have got a vacuum?
I don't think so. We got a letter from afar, with a great idea. This comes from, now he signs this Phil from Punxsutawney.
Oh.
Now you folks in Pennsylvania would probably know that
the groundhogs can write.
It's a groundhog. The groundhog can write. So I'm assuming that's not his real name, but his email address is some garble. Anyway, and he's proposing a solution to the COVID vaccination issue, which at this point seems to be all garbled up. It's there. It's not there. You're in the lottery.
It's slow.
You're buying movie tickets to all that sort of thing. Anyway, he said, and I'm going to paraphrase this, and I'm going to slim it down because he's he's gone into some very complex calculations here, triple integrals, but he says first point, number one, trash companies pick up your trash every week. Now, if they can do it, think about how we can vaccinate everybody using vaccine on wheels.
Vaccine on wheels.
Just like if the garbage man can do it, why can't we do it? Why can't the rest of it? Now, this is a simplified math, okay? So, we'll put this in the liner notes. So first of all, say it takes a minute a shot plus a 15-minute wait for the last person in the neighborhood. So that's 60 people an hour plus a final wait, okay? So if you had one van with a driver and 4 medical personnel, that's 2 teams of 2. You could very conservatively working 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, with only 70% efficiency. Now we're putting a lot of slop in here.
Yeah, I'm a real math wizard here. So carry on.
So you're starting to glaze over already. Yeah. So we could do 5,000 people a week, or in 13 weeks one group of 5 people could do 65,000 of us. Okay. Now, let's say we have 300 million people that need to get vaccinated, and there probably won't be that many, but we'll be.
That's to achieve herd immunity or something.
Yeah. Well, this is actually higher than herd immunity.
Oh,
okay. But let's say it. So you would need then 4,615 trucks. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's round that up to 5,000 trucks or vans, if we want to call them vans.
Across America.
Across America. Okay. So, and the vans are going to have a refrigerator in them, not to take it down to minus 95F, just enough to keep it cool from the hospital or wherever the pickup point is to your neighborhood.
Thawing it out quickly.
Thawing it out, yeah. So what would that cost? A truck like that, 50,000, 100,000. I'm going to say 200,000. He's going to say 200,000. Okay. So that's $1 billion in equipment. All right.
Or we could use just ask Amazon to borrow their fleet for a week.
You kind of took my punchline there. Thanks.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead, but then we think.
Okay, let's think about it. So it's $1 billion for equipment. Let's get really conservative and say $2 billion. Let's say it costs $2 billion for equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Wages. Let's say these people are all getting paid. Will be paid on $100,000 a year, but you're using them for a quarter of a year. So that comes out $700 million in wages. Let's round it up to $1 billion. All right.
Okay. $1 billion.
So we got $1 billion in wages and we got $2 billion in equipment. Very, very conservatively. That's $3 billion, 13 weeks, and it's done. That's 0.05% of the U.S. budget. Of course, you have the cost of the vaccine, but yeah. Or as you said, we could just use the Amazon truck, use the garbage trucks.
Oh yeah, that's exactly.
Hose them out, and so I know, not trying to be too silly here.
I'm putting some whiskey in my coffee now, Dave.
This is as serious as we get. I mean, it is possible, folks. It's not rocket science, but that's all we're going to whine about that. Just a point. So I want to thank Phil from Punxsutawney, and I apologize, Phil, for simplifying your numbers here, but. I didn't have enough calculator power to...
Do you realize in your calculations there, that reminds me that with mathematics, our coach was able to show how good we did in a football game when we lost by 47 points. With percentages and everything, wasn't so bad of a game after all.
There was a team in North Dakota that did worse. Yeah.
So all in all, I support your idea. I'd say let's get them trucks rolling. And get out there and get everybody vaccinated.
Get them vaccinated.
Vaccinated.
Not only can he not spell, he pronounces the misspelled words wrong.
That's a legit word, vaccinated.
Okay. Vaccinated. Okay.
Transfervated or whatever.
All right, that's enough on COVID. That's enough. That's enough serious stuff. Dale, you've made a little note here. You wanted to talk about finding elephants.
After we talked about the picture of you standing next to that giant African elephant with that big tusker, which I accused of being fake and a stuffed animal. But in reality, it was a real elephant, and you were standing next to it. But it was an elephant that had been raised in captivity, so it was relatively tame. But it doesn't change the fact that it's just huge, and they're majestic. But I did have an elephant story, which I mentioned to you after that. So my story is, I was in Africa, and
that's where the African elephants are, right?
yeah, that's where the African elephants are. And I was in Africa.
Still with you.
And I knew my way around pretty good. I'd traveled around a bit there, and I was in a set of circumstances where there was a very important person, where a new person was coming into town, and they said, well, who could take him around and kind of show him the neighborhood? So they said, Mlojwa, that's what they called me. They said, Mlojwa can and Tatsa, the big Numzani, to Buga the Enlovu, which basically means I can take him around and let him see the elephants. And Lovu is the elephants. In fact,
you're the elephant whisperer or something like that.
No, I just knew where they were.
Okay.
I just knew where they were. So the word in Lovu is a word that the Africans used to use. It's the Nlovu Ngena. And that was a kind of a catchphrase that they would say. They said the elephant has entered the room, which means, right,
watch out.
Yeah, you're underneath your breath. You'd say Nlovu Ngena, meaning the elephant is
no
now,
good.
The big guy is in the room. So
no good.
The big Nomzani, yeah, I said, okay, I'll do it. And so we procured ourselves a decent full-size Toyota Land Cruiser, and
vaccine equipped.
No.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it was just. I think there was three of us that day. I think there was this gentleman and his wife. I think was there. I'm not sure. I was driving, and I knew where to go. So we had about an hour's drive, something like that. Not the equivalent of Kruger National Park, or not the equivalent of Okavanga, games, state parks. Not that big. This was sort of a private entity.
Okay.
It was
private game park.
Yeah, it was called Tlani, which in the African...
I won't ask you to spell it.
I can't spell it.
Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't spell it. But it is. It means wild. Okay. So we take off and we cruise for about an hour, and we get out to this park, go in, we register, and get all the instructions and fees. I don't think I'd been in there before, but I had been by there many times. So we went inside. Now, I want you to conceptualize this. You pull in a dirt road, and you run into this big, I would say 8-foot fence, which is the gate you're going to go through, the main gates. Not like Kruger, which is more open, but this is definitely gated. So you get in there, and the roads are not tarred. They're just one-track roads. So if you meet a vehicle coming the other way, you definitely have to kind of squeeze over somehow to let them pass, and two cars can't pass. So it's relatively wild, but you can sort of camp in there, and the rangers all carry guns, and the park had antelopes and maybe some kudu and some grazing animals, but about 12 elephants. So everything is going fine. Day starts out, we get out there, and I am now driving through the park, and we're going to go find the elephants. We make a sort of a little loop, and we run across the ranger and say, "Where are the elephants?" He said, "Well, you might find them by this water, and there's always a lake. Has to be some kind of water. They like water. Need a lot of water.
A lot of water.
A lot of water. Water. Yeah." So anyhow, he said, "I think you might find them near the water or over in this section." So after about 45 minutes of traveling around, we see some monkeys, and we see some gazelles and springbucks and grazing animals. I don't think we saw any cats, because they had some predators in there, but I don't think we saw any at the time.
Big cat.
No, I don't think they had lions in there. They might have had a cheetah, or they might have had something like cheetahs. I think was about the biggest. So we're driving around in there, and my guest just said, "Well, where are the elephants?" I said, "You can see all the trails of them. You could see all the damage that they cause. Elephants eat trees. So all the trees that they knock them down at about maybe a 60-degree angle, almost flat to the ground. and they just graze off the greenery or the bark. So you can see all this stuff all around us or in sections. And the trees now, they're dead or they're dying, and they turn gray.
Like our hair.
Yes, like our hair. But visualize this. Now you're looking into a forest of trees that are pretty much gray, and they are leaning down. Some are standing up sort of a little bit, but there are no foliage on them, but there are lots of them. So what color is an elephant?
I'd say it's pretty similar to that gray that you're looking at.
Right.
Yeah.
So we now are making our third trip crisscrossing this park. We ran across a rhinoceros, mother rhinoceros with a cub, and she's standing right out in the middle of the road or crossing the road when we pull up on her. She turns and faces us. I put it in reverse.
Ooh.
Yeah, straight away. And I back up as far as I can. And we wait a while until finally her and her calf marches across the road because she had a pretty good sized horn on her. So we weren't about to get any closer. So I said, oh, look, we've seen rhino. So we keep going.
Where's the elephant?
Right.
Where's the elephant?
Yeah,
Dale?
I thought you said he was going to see the elephants. Okay. So we're going, and we ride through this park at least 2.5 to 3 hours. It's now like getting closer to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we still have a long way to go back. We're riding, and we cannot find these elephants. So finally, I stopped the car near that forest I was telling you about because we'd passed it a couple times. I said, this is the forest, the gray forest that's knocked down.
The gray forest.
And I said to him,
The camo forest.
yeah, the camo forest. And I said, now, listen, I want you to look out there very carefully. I'm pretty sure. I said, I'm pretty sure if you look really, really careful, you'll see that what appears to be trees is really the legs of some elephants standing there.
Going out in a limb here.
Right, yeah. I said, so if you just concentrate on there, look at that. So they're looking out there.
Just pretend.
They're looking there. So I gave them about 2 or 3 minutes to digest that. I said, I declare that we have seen the elephants. This is a true story. I said, I declare we have seen the elephants, and we made our way out of that park and went back. I said, so if anybody tells you, I said, we saw them. I'm telling you, they were in the trees. Now, I've seen them up close one time, blocking a road, and I've seen them many times at a distance, where they're just like a black, look like a rock somewhere standing out there. So that's my adventure to find the elephants. And you can say, is that possible that you could not see something that big?
I'd say the answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
You just cannot.
And the way all the animals and the flora and fauna have evolved there, it's all symbiotic. They're all.
That's right. Yeah. So the elephants, the whole herd got away unseen. Anyhow, I declared it a victory.
Declared it a victory. Congratulations.
And that was my.
Yeah. That reminds. I've got a lion story too, but it's kind of a long story. Maybe we'll save that for a future episode. You just reminded me of the lion story.
All right, we'll hold that. But those are interesting things. I'm going to go out in the wind. I'm going to see them. They're going to be standing there. You know what I mean? Like, no, it just wasn't that easy.
They're not lining up for you.
They were not lining up waiting for me to come.
They are. It's their world. They do what they want to do. Yeah.
And that's the story of my hunting the elephants and
failing to find elephants. Yeah. Yes, an apt title.
So moving right along, is that how we segue?
We could do that. We could say that, moving right along. I'm going to slip into a little bit of culture club here.
Okay.
I'd like to talk about an article I read in Bicycling Magazine. This was sent to me by a relative who knew that I like cycling, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And it's called "What Happens When Two Strangers Trust the Rides of Their Lives to the Magic of the Universe." With a title like that, this is going to be...
should be interesting.
This is going to be interesting, yeah. Now, this was written by Kim Cross, and it was in the March 2020 edition of Bicycling Magazine. And honestly, it's the best outdoor adventure essay story that I've read since Into Thin Air, that John Krakauer published in Outside Magazine. Beautifully written. It's almost poetic. Let's say it is poetic, really. It traces the journey of two cyclists, an American cyclist starting in Portugal, headed for China, and the other fella starts. He's a Brit. He starts in China, or actually he starts in Korea, South Korea, I believe.
From Portugal to China.
Yeah, it's a hike.
That is a hike.
Yeah, it's a hike. Anyway, they're riding in opposite directions. Now, there's nothing planned here. They don't know each other. They don't know each other's doing this. But I just want to read the opening here because I think it's spectacular. And the whole story is spectacular. Noel, an American, began in Lisbon and headed east. Leon, a Brit, began in South Korea and went west. Now you notice their names, Noel, Leon. Their names are a palindrome.
Oh,
okay, it's amazing, and she uses that methodology throughout the story. She plays on the palindrome issue. All right, so here's the story. Once upon a road in Kazakhstan, two men converge in the desert. Strangers born an ocean apart, riding bicycles burdened like camels, they emerge from either horizon, slowly approaching a common point. Day by day, hour after hour, they make their way through a land as flat and featureless as a page without words. Thousands of miles spool out behind them. Thousands more lie ahead. One rides east, the other west. For months now, each has been pedaling alone through the sun, wind, rain, and snow, climbing mountains, crossing plains, and loading his bike onto boats to float across minor seas. Now on a Sunday morning in August, they soldier down an unpaved Soviet road that never seems to bend. The only sound is tires crunching on gravel, and now and then the lonely roar of a truck hurrying between the two, somewheres. The earth spins, the sun rises. Long shadows shrink into puddles of shade beneath their spinning wheels. From dawn to dusk, in every direction, the landscape looks the same.
wow.
That's the opening to the story. And then she goes on to describe, she goes back and forth between the two at various points in the journey and things that they've discovered or things that they've encountered. And then she ends the story the same way. The ending is the same as the beginning. These two guys approaching each other.
So she wasn't actually the writer. She was telling the story.
No, she did this. She was just telling the story. She did this after, she heard about the story from somebody in a bike shop, and then she just got intrigued by it. She researched it. She tracked down both participants.
Oh, okay.
Extensively interviewed them, got their diary. The one fellow in particular was keeping a good diary. And they had photographs. So it was a terrific article, a terrific essay.
It's like you were on the ride yourself.
You were on the ride yourself, or you wished you had been on the ride yourself.
Oh my! I mean, so they both were there. They both were still alive when she interviewed them, but neither one of the actual writers decided to write a book or anything like that.
Correct. Yeah.
So did it turn out to be a long article or just a magazine article or actually a book?
It's a magazine article.
So like 5,000 words or something.
It's
2,000 words.
I didn't count them. It's a great read. It's it's a 20 or 30 minute read, somewhere in there.
So it was a thrill ride from the first word.
It was. I was just blown away by how well written it was, and what the subject matter was just very interesting to me. Well, it was great adventure story.
Yeah, and we were talking about that. In fact, we often talk about things we read, but see, that's a very, very memorable article for you.
Yes. In fact, I'll tell you, it was so memorable that I tracked down the author, Kim Cross. She has a website. I wrote her a note, and I said, this was the best outdoor adventure story that I've read since Into Thin Air, John Krakauer, Outside Magazine. And amazingly, she wrote back, and she said, that's the article that made me want to do this as a career. So she said, that's high praise.
So
I'm getting there.
Yeah,
I'm getting there. Yeah.
Well, it sounded like a fantastic story. In fact, it's like one of them things where once you get to you read the first paragraph, and it's like you're just holding on. You're gripping the edge of the magazine or your chair and just riding right there with them. So it sounds like a fantastic.
Yeah, it was great. So I recommend it. It'll be in the liner notes if anybody. We'll put a link to the website to where the article is. So.
Oh, that's super.
So now. It's your turn to talk about something This may or may not be a book review, right?
No, it's not so much a book review because you do write and you pick interesting things to read, and you appreciate stories like you just mentioned. I sometimes pick up books because they're just in front of me, like a book I've pushed aside 10 times, and one time I just picked it up and said, I'll try to read it. And I say that because this was a Robert Ludlum book, and we know him from The Bourne Identity.
Right, yeah, that whole
scenario. So I'm thinking the blurb on it was didn't say anything about a spy. You know, you read the blurb on the back. In fact, how did I pronounce that, Dave? It was Gandolfo. Where's it at?
The Road to Gandolfo, was that it?
Yeah, The Road to Gandolfo.
There it is. Okay.
So anyhow, it's
in front of us now.
Yeah, it's in front of us now. I mean, I'm going to put it back in the library. I just brought it along as a reference. But it's not so much I intend to review books as to the content or how enjoyable. I'm just fascinated that authors, when they become successful sometime, can actually go off on a funny, they can pick a subject that isn't in their genre.
So this is kind of a humorous book by Ludlum?
It is a kind of a humorous book. It's funny in an interesting vein. This lawyer is tricked by a clever man into doing a bunch of things he doesn't want to do, and he's trying to get out of it. But I mean, I read the whole thing, had a different premise, but I'm just saying that there are books when an author gets successful enough, sometimes they vary into something they really like. You pick it up and think, this is totally funny.
It's like the elephants, we can do whatever we want now. We're the biggest kid on the block.
Right.
Yeah, he's sold a lot of books and
right. That's exactly what I think.
He does.
So I'm just saying that when you look at some of these, I picked that one up. But I mean, I don't know if Patterson or some of these other authors, I generally don't read all of them because once I read the first one, sometimes I just don't read the second.
They're really the same book written 30 times.
Yeah, and so I just gave up. So this one here was particularly, and I only mention it to you because when I find one written in a different faction, like where there's 2 sentences on a page, just
like I am the messenger.
Yeah, like nothing but commas. I'm thinking, boy, that's a different, interesting way to do that. So I mentioned them to you probably on the first cup of coffee, and after that we move on. So not a book review, but
I agree.
Yeah, not a book review, but just let people know that sometimes you can find an author that does get free, and you'll find
a thoughtful thought.
Right. It's just funny. It's different, and you never read anything else about his stuff, but you'll say, "Boy, this was a very clever piece." So that's all. And that's all I had to say about that.
Okay. Well, we're actually ripping our way through this half hour or so. I'm going to just do one letter from afar, just a brief mention. We talked about, you had a segment on always and never, and one insightful listener sent in a high and lowest cartoon where the father is saying to the son, the son has got his phone in his hand and he's got his earphone plugged in. And the father says something like, "You're always on the phone." And the son says, "Well, that's not true. I'm not on the phone in the shower."
In the shower. That's the always and never thing.
Always and never, which actually, in my mind, brought back the comment that Mike from Gibsonia said, the letter he sent in, where he was listening to us in the shower while typing an email to us. A letter to us. So,
on his waterproof Apple 12 or something.
I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that was one quick letter from afar here.
And I thought that was a very ingenious comparison because that cartoon did not actually use the words always and never, but the implication was exactly that.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah. Everybody will run into that, the always and never thing.
So keep those cards and letters coming in, folks.
Yeah, more cards and letters. That's always good.
Well, listen, we're getting close to the end. I want to just throw in another quote. You had a couple episodes where you talked about words of wisdom.
Words of wisdom.
Quotes.
Oh yeah, famous quotes. Okay.
Yeah, and I this is one that I carried around with me. It's stuck on the inside of my folio, right next to a Dave Barry story. Not a story, but. And this is a quote from Jackie Kennedy Onassis. I've been through a lot and have suffered a great deal, but I have had lots of happy moments as well. Every moment one lives is different from the other. The good, the bad, hardship, the joy, the tragedy, love and happiness are all interwoven into one single indescribable whole that is called life. You cannot separate the good from the bad, and perhaps there is no need to do so either.
That's a very interesting.
I just it always stuck with me. It's
How about that?
It's pretty. I thought that's pretty. That's some wisdom there.
And
for
one original. I want to hear an original.
I want to hear an original. Yes.
It's not how many bucks you have time to spend, but the bucks you spend the time with.
I noticed you couldn't read your writing there.
That's a 6 o'clock in the morning
That's a
quote
6 o'clocker. Okay. On that, I am going to say, this is Dave.
This is Del.
And we are
Two
the two old
Bucks.
Bucks.